Hello and welcome to That British Homestead. My name's Nick and today I'm going to correct a mistake I've made. I regret doing my netting like this because it was too close to my beans, which resulted in either the birds eating them through the only thing I'm kind of concerned about is that in the UK we have like quite dramatic storms in the winter and quite large winds. I probably remember a little while ago me having my greenhouse, which is actually still in pieces behind me, waiting to be collected by the rubbish man. Basically, that was just destroyed in one of the windstorms that we have. So I'm a little bit concerned that these are going to kind of blow off. But worse comes to worse, I'll just take the netting down or fix it when it has blown over. So what I'm looking for is it just to repel some birds. So this is the second part of the bed that the plants were actually able to push the netting upwards. Once they're not ideal, I did put some metal loops in there which helped with the plants being able to push that netting upwards, but it wasn't big enough, and that was a regret of mine. And also the weeds had grown quite like bad within the netting due to me not being able to weed it. So I thought I'd come in and just change this bed, as I think it's a great opportunity for this bed to be revamped and have a little bit of time spent on it. I'm actually harvesting. Do you know what really surprised me about this? Even though I had the mesh on the bed and it was really pressing down onto the bush beans here, the beans were actually growing. Furthermore, I thought that they had to be pollinated, and I didn't think there was any way that pollinators could get into them beans. But they obviously did, or they self-pollinated, because I got tons of beans on them. As you see, there's loads of flowers and a few more smaller beans growing. So I'm now putting the stakes in this side as well, so that I can build the same basic bed structure there. All of this piping that I'm using is piping that I found on the allotment. I haven't bought any of this. The stakes also found on the allotment. When you get an allotment, you get a lot of stuff that's like second hand. Don't ever throw it away. It will be used for something. I always find a use for something eventually. Also, these are the world's most blunted scissors. I couldn't find my scissors because I tend to not put things away, as you probably can tell by spending 5 seconds on my channel. So I borrowed them from my lovely plotmate. I'm not complaining, but they are incredibly blunt. It took me a significant amount of time to cut this, and I got very frustrated with it. Now, I decided that it would be a really good idea to stake between my hoops. Now, the problem with second-hand stakes is people buy them at different lengths, and these are obviously too small. So I've used all my big stakes, which once again second-hand, to stake all my tomatoes. So instead of wanting to spend money, because in my mind an allotment is something that you do for very low cost, I decided to make do and mend. Now, this is the first time I've ever DIY'd anything, so if you're thinking to yourself, this woman hasn't got a clue, you're very right, she doesn't. However, I would really, really appreciate it if you could tell me what I'm doing wrong in the comments, because I really enjoy learning and I would really like to be able to DIY better in the future. But as my first project, I have to say I'm quite proud of it. Yes, it is 90% cable ties, and yes, it was absolutely terrible trying to get this fabric over the loops. You can just see the absolute frustration in my face. And yes, the middle loop tends to be a little bit bigger because I got a piece of metal stuck on the end and I didn't know how to take it off. Now, I could have cut it, but I chose not to. As you can see, I'm just draping the netting over here. Now, it wasn't quite long enough. Yes, I did measure it. Yes, I was sure before I cut it. And yes, it was the wrong size. So what I'm doing is just pulling it down, and I managed to get more fabric on one side than the other. It is an art form. So I'm just pulling it down and putting bricks on it. What I'm going to do is actually put some stakes on either side that will weigh it down. I'm also reseeding the bed where some of them haven't come up, or pest damage, or whatever it was, so that I have a more of a chance of having a full bed here. Now, sowing beans this late in the year is a little bit risky, but I fancy the risk. It's been a very, very warm season and I'm trying to sort of edge my bets. First frost is very likely to be the 4th of November. I might get some beans, I might not. Because I cut it too short, I've actually used the old netting here, and I've just used pegs to hold it in place. Right, so me and Jasmine are now finished. We're doing this. We have got all of our beans in there. I've actually reseeded some of the beans so that they'll grow. And I'm going to go ahead and water it. And this area here, when we're done, is going to be our winter cabbages. So it's going to look really good. We're going to cover it with wheat brain and hopefully the pigeons won't eat it. We'll also do pet cabbages in there when that's finished too.
Now my beans will grow.
Woo! So the harvest is still coming in hot and fast. I do have a little bit of a concern about the blight, but I am looking into some organic treatments for blight. I was actually talking to my partner yesterday about tomatoes actually, because we found some old tomato jars from 2020. That was a bumper year for us. We got so many tomatoes. I think we had something like 10 plants, and we got a ridiculous amount of tomatoes, so many so that we actually put up tomato sauce for that year and the year that just passed. Last year, which is 2021, we actually got like no tomatoes. If you remember, the blight came super early. I think we had some fresh eating tomatoes which we just gobbled up in like no time, pretty much picked them off the plant and ate them. But as soon as you start thinking about canning, they were all gone basically. There was never enough to make a single jar of sauce. So we ended up not having any sauce from last year, which was fine because we had our 2020 jars still. And I don't know if you've ever canned before, but when you pressure treat cans or even water bath them, they last for years and years and years and years. So it isn't a worry, just to like, if you're thinking, oh my god, botulism, that's not a worry. So I thought it was really cool. So then I started canning these this year, and I mean, I can't even tell you how many jars I've put up. I mean, just the other day I put up something like 16 jars. They're all 500 millilitres each. And I was thinking to myself, how cool is this? Because next year I might get a dreadful harvest of tomatoes. You know, you never know when the blight's going to come. It could be a wet year next year, we don't know. And I could be feeding my family for 2 years on these, or I could be donating them to my friends. Lots of my friends have really struggled with tomatoes this year, so I'm going to be incredibly happy by giving them some tomato sauce that I've made over the coming winter period, because there's nothing better than freshly grown tomatoes and freshly grown tomato sauce. No one makes it as well as you do. It doesn't sound arrogant, it is just the product you're using. So I'm really excited about that. I'm also very, very excited because today, well, it's almost tomorrow because I edit really late at night. It's a terrible habit. But tomorrow I'm going to be making that roasted tomato sauce, and I'm going to soup, sorry, and I'm going to be canning it. And I'm really excited about having that on tap whenever I fancy it, for when I'm not feeling too great, or I'm a little bit under the weather, or perhaps I'm at work and I just can't be bothered to cook anything. I'm really excited about that. These cucumbers, yes, they are looking a bit worse for wear, aren't they? They've all got powdery mildew. This variety was not happy with the powdery mildew. It was really susceptible to it, but they are doing really well. I do have some more cucumbers that are really, really tolerant to the powdery mildew, so I'll be saving seeds from them to make sure that I have them for next year. But I have to say, I'm quite impressed with the amount of cucumbers I'm getting. I will be producing a lot more cucumbers for next year though, because I really want to have a year's worth of pickles on hand so that we can eat pickles to our heart content, which would be very exciting. But at the moment I've only got about 10 litres of pickles, so yes, it's really great. I'm going to make some more tomorrow, but I would like to have as much that we could pick ourselves out, like our tomatoes, which are constantly coming in. These are a green variety. Aren't they beautiful? I just love the fact that they're all different and there's stuff that you just can't buy off the shelves. Ta-da! So yeah, I always pick them a bit early if you're worrying why I'm picking them when they're a little bit more green. Lots of them are green varieties, like this is a giant green tomato. I generally just think it's a fantastic variety. Right, well thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. See you next time. Bye bye.